Welcome to the Chasing Care podcast. On today's episode, I'm delighted to say we have an industry professional, without doubt, somebody I follow and somebody that you really need to listen to today. Katie Fury. She's highly experienced. She's worked across home care with leading providers. And Katie, welcome to the Chasing Care podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here. So thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, well, you've got so much of value to add to this conversation today. I really wanted to get you on board. But before we get going, why don't you tell us who you are, where you've come from, and what your experience is?
Of course. So I've been working in the health and social care sector for the last 10 years plus. Prior to that, I was in financial services, so a very, very different sector. And I've been incredibly lucky to work with amazing brands across health and social care, really high quality leading brands. And 8 years of that was for a well-known franchise brand. So I've got experience within franchising sector as well. I was the operations director there for 8 years, supporting over 215 franchises who were all delivering high quality care in the private care paid market. So that was incredible. And then after that, I worked for another business where I was redesigning target operating models. So really looking at how to optimize the care delivery as much as possible and allowing carers to really focus on delivering care rather than filling in notes and paperwork and apps and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, incredible experience in health and social care. So now I'm super passionate about keeping people in their own homes as they age. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I've got 2 little girls and I'm married, and I also have a dog called Bella.
Amazing. And what you should have also told us is that you've taken that step to go it alone, and now you're providing experience and advice to people that are partway through their journey, need to learn how to be better at what they do for the industry's sake. And we know we're regulated. We know we're regulated by the Care Quality Commission. And the Chasing Care podcast has been historically focusing on the care providers and how they can better deliver care. That's care homes, nursing homes, home care providers, living care providers. But in 2024, we've shifted. We're trying to help the general public understand what good care looks like, what a good provider should look like. So the reason I've asked Katie to join us today is to bring the message home to the audience. If you're looking for care, it's often when you're really under pressure to find care for a loved one. And the default has either been a care home or home care. But most people don't understand where to go to find that care. So what we're going to look at today, Katie, and I'm going to ask you a question. Here we go. How do I, who knows nothing about care, how do I go about finding that personal care in a time of need for me or for a loved one? And more importantly, how can I be better prepared when that time comes, when I do need that care? So the first point is, tell me, how do I go about finding care? And what should I be thinking when I go finding that care?
Absolutely. The $1 million question, right? I think this is something that every single family faces a challenge, and not only navigating who to look after their loved one, but when to actually start that journey and when to start thinking about it. I think that's the biggest challenge. Care in the UK is a crisis purchase, which is incredibly sad because there's lots of missed opportunity out there in terms of, we could bring that journey much, much earlier on. But in terms of looking for care, it's really about the individual person who's going to be receiving care, right? A lot of the time, it's families making the decisions for their loved one, informed decisions, obviously. But ultimately, it's about what are the needs of that individual, so that then you're more informed around the services that you might want to look for. And there's loads of different services out there. You can start with companionship care. You might need real hands-on personal care if you are at a crisis point. And as you said, the Care Quality Commission are who regulate the sector and obviously have loads of information on their websites. They have lots of details around providers and the reports of the providers. So what rating they're currently stand at, and reasons for why they're rated around those particular areas as well. So the Care Quality Commission is a place that you can go and look at, but nobody would ever know that. Nobody would ever think, when you're in that moment of crisis and mum or dad have fallen or they need some additional support, nobody thinks, oh, I'll go and look at the regulator in this sector. They don't. But it is a platform that you can go and use and find out a little bit more about services. But that's really hard fact. I think for me, and what I spend a lot of time with businesses doing is really getting brands to be out there and building relationships in their community, building that level of trust, and really understanding what consumers actually want, what people actually want care to look like. So a lot of the time, people who own care businesses will spend time, yes, on social media platforms, and they'll spend time out in their local communities trying to raise their own brand awareness. But that takes time. And I think the challenge with that is, even though it's a necessity for people to do that to inform us, the public, if you're not looking for care, that message is not going to hit home at all. So what's really important in terms of, from my point of view, in terms of navigating the sector is, it's also speaking to people who are going through that themselves. It's also speaking about healthcare professionals and understanding who they believe are well positioned and deliver high quality care in their local communities or wider, depending if it's a national brand, for example. So I would definitely engage with healthcare professionals as well. And even though I'm saying that, people are saying, yeah, but healthcare professionals can't recommend anybody, or they don't like to recommend anybody. I think that really needs to change. They are people who are really well positioned and in touch with many providers out there. They know what good looks like. They know what you should expect from care delivery. So I would definitely say engaging with your healthcare professionals is really important, whether that's the local discharge team in the hospital where mum and dad may be coming from, whether it's your local GP, your local health information centres. Whoever is positioned as a professional in the sector is definitely somebody I would be speaking to, because 9 times out of 10, they will know the really good providers in the area, and they will know the services that are going to support your loved one in the best possible way. Social media is huge, right? And there's no getting away from it. And I think it's a great platform for providers to talk about their story, talk about what service they deliver, talk about why they're so significantly different from the next provider. I think that's a really easy platform to engage with as a son or a daughter looking for care for mum or dad. And most of the time you're on there anyway, right? There's been a huge spike and an increase in consumers looking for services through social media channels. I also think social media gives it a different edge and more personalized, so that you can see a lot more about a brand. You don't turn up at care providers and pop into the office and sit down a lot of the times and have a cup of coffee and learn a little bit about them. To be fair, some do when they're on the high street, but a lot of providers are tucked away in serviced offices and industrial estates and places like that, and therefore they're not front and center of anybody. It's not like they're on the local high street all the time. So I think social media platforms are a great way to understand what services people are delivering, understand what their offers are, but also bringing stories to life. Lots of providers out there share incredible stories about the differences that they're making to somebody's life. And if I was looking for care for my mum, that's what I would want to see. I'd want to see real life stories, real impact. What difference are you actually making to this individual's life? And I think a lot of that can come from social media, albeit quite a new platform for some people. The other areas that I would look to learn a little bit more about care as well is ultimately our wonderful world of looking through the internet, right? There's so much information out there by independent voices, by people like yourselves as well, who talk about what good care looks like and what you should actually expect. There's organisations like the Care Workers Charity, which talk so much about what to look for in great carers as well, because that's really important, right? You're going to let ultimately a stranger into your home to look after somebody you love the most, right? So important. So for me, it's not just about educating yourself for, well, where do I go to find care? It's also, well, what should I be looking for in terms of a carer? How experienced should they be? How well trained should they be to look after my mum or dad? So key areas that I'd look for is healthcare professionals, engaging with those healthcare professionals, searching yourself because you know what you're looking for. There's a wealth of information out there on the internet, and I'm not going to name specific areas or people to go to, but there's so much out there. And I think in terms of the questions that you would want to ask, I think there's a lot of answers out there in terms of what's already in the world and there for consumers to look at. And it's not, when people say, oh, I'll go and search on the internet, it's like for care, and people might go, oh God, like, why would you do that? You want somebody to tell you who to go to. Well, it should be an informed choice based on what you're looking for, not just what people are telling you. And also look in the local community. There's some amazing community organisations. There's also the lots of charities, Alzheimer's UK, Dementia Friends, Age UK, loads and loads of independent charities who know people in the community, like care providers should and do work and engage with local charities. So again, they will be really well informed. And also local authorities will know and work with providers out there. And they might not be able to say specifically, go for this one, but they will definitely be able to help you make an informed decision to ensure that the service that you want and how you want your loved one to be looked after, it meets those needs.
Wow. Now, you see, you've just drowned me with knowledge. And this is the problem I see it. When I need care for my loved one, I haven't planned for this at all. And now you've told me that I can go here, I can go there, I should look at this, I could do that, to make an informed decision. But you know what? Being a little cheeky, I suppose, about what you told me, I have a car. I take it to a garage, they fix it because they know what to do with the car. I've got a choice of one or two garages, and if it goes all right, then it goes all right. But they're the experts, and I don't care. That makes sense. I just want my car fixed. It sounds to me as if it's a very complicated thing. If my mum is poorly and I think that she needs some care, how am I going to get certainty quickly? I mean, I want it tomorrow. I don't want it after months of trying to do some research. And it reminds me of the financial services world. You don't go to the independent body to ask them about who should I go to get an insurance quote, do I?
Yeah.
So what is the purpose? Let's break it down in little bits, if I may. What does CQC do? They're a body. What are they there for?
Well, ultimately, they're there to regulate quality care, right? They're there to make sure providers are providing the service that they should be. They're regulated into across a number of areas, and I won't go too technical because it won't resonate with somebody who knows absolutely nothing about care. But they're there to ultimately safeguard you as a consumer to make sure that whoever is looking after you, they are meeting the regulations, they are meeting the levels of quality care that anybody should expect. That's in a very, very simplified view. And you're totally right, Gavin. I've just given you numerous platforms to go to look at, right? There's homecare.co.uk, who also provide insights and 5-star ratings on who's good and who's not so good. Glassdoor, another one for carers who love them.
Trustpilot, another one.
And therefore begs the question, right? Is there an opportunity here for somebody to create a platform to support people to navigate care, to make an informed decision in terms of saying, this is what I'm looking for. These are the current health concerns of my loved one. What services are out there in my local area? And it almost presents opportunities and solutions to an individual. I don't see that out there. I see many people coming into the sector who are introducers, right? They're the middleman. But again, it's like, well, how would you even find them? How would you even know that there are people out there who you can go to and say, this is what I need? And they'll say, here's 10 providers that you could go and look for. So your question is the right question to ask. Like, great, Katie, that's loads of information, but still, I'm still navigating a huge amount of information. So therefore, I think the opportunity is out there for somebody to actually create something to enable myself and you navigate the care system in a better way. Because you've just said it, whether you take your car to the garage, whether you want to look for better insurance, there are platforms, one-stop platforms that you go in, you put your information and it'll give you a whole list of these people. There's still going to always be a level of navigation from somebody who's buying that service to make sure it meets your needs, no matter how good anybody is at telling you about a care business or a platform. You're still going to have to do some level of legwork for that.
You mentioned that there are different types of care. I know what a care home is. I know what a nursing home is. I think I know what home care is. And you mentioned companionship care. And you've mentioned a regulator. Does everybody that does all of these things have to be regulated by the CQC? Is that one guarantee that I have or not?
Short answer. Short answer is, to keep it simple, anything that is positioned around personal care, where you're providing personal care, it's a regulated activity. Therefore, if your loved one has need, and personal care, again, it can span, I suppose, the minute you are into personal care with an individual, and people say, well, what does personal care, what does that mean? What does personal care?
My next question.
That's when you sort of, the relationship is more intimate in terms of you may be bathing somebody, you may be supporting somebody clinically, for example. Personal care is a much more in-depth service, which is why it needs to be regulated, because there's levels of risk around it. Companionship, on the complete flip side, is not a regulated activity as we stand here today. So many providers and franchisees, franchisors who are in the care sector, a lot of them start with companionship services whilst they wait to get regulated by CQC. And companionship is softer stuff. It's the social stuff. It spending time with someone to really, which is something I'm incredibly passionate about, because it really is that loneliness aspect, which, as we know, is one of the biggest killers out there. So companionship is much more the softer stuff, the going out shopping, the spending time with somebody, socializing with someone, versus personal care is a lot more around hands-on care with an individual, somebody who's got increased need and needs basically support him to live independently in their own home, and support them to do a lot of the everyday things that we take for granted, to give them support to do that.
And that's regulated. Being a companion isn't regulated.
That's right.
You also mentioned something called an introduction agency. What do they do? Are they regulated?
No, they're not regulated. So, which I think is quite a challenge. It is a challenge for the sector, because ultimately an introductory service is a little bit like any other service that we've just spoke about, in somebody who's pointing you in the direction of a potential provider. So what you will get is lots of platforms out there where, let's say I was a care provider, I can position my services onto their introductory website, and basically people can go and visit, understand what my services are, and from that introductory website come to my service. So they are not regulated. They are ultimately signposting people to different providers.
Are they qualified to do that in any way?
You're asking me controversial questions, Gavin.
That's what we're here for. No, I'm just trying to help the listener understand. You've got a regulated body. Okay, so I can go to a financial advisor, who's a regulated individual, to get advice about investing. But there are other ways of finding support for financial services. You can go, I guess, on moneysupermarket.com, and that just provides you a list of people. So that sounds to me what an introduction agency is, but do people understand that there is the difference? That's where I'm getting to with this. I'm a critical need of care for my mum today. It's a major issue that's just occurred. Am I going to know that I can find it, or I find an introduction agency on the search engine rather than a CQC regulated care provider?
In my opinion, I'd be looking for somebody who talked to me about a regulated CQC from a CQC point of view. But that's because I know it, right? And now hopefully everybody else will know it. When you're going to look for services for your loved one, and CQC provide different rating around what the service looks like, whether they're good, they're outstanding. There's a number of different areas where currently providers get scored basically on the services that they deliver. That would be my first port of call. And it's not, you want a good quality service. And I think sometimes if you don't go there first, you could end up working with a provider who is potentially inadequate, because there are providers out there, unfortunately, who are still operating at that level. There may be providers who require improvement. Again, you'd want to know, well, what does that mean? How do they need to improve? But like you just said, right there and then, I want to know today who I can go to. I'd be looking for a good to outstanding rated provider out there to provide services for my loved one. The flip side of it is, I'm not saying people who provide introductory services don't know about care. I would have expected them to do their homework. How much homework they have done is in question. The providers they let onto their portals is a question. Do they only let good and outstanding providers on, or do they let people with requires improvement on there because certain aspects of the requires improvement isn't as alarming as others, for example? So I'm not going to say, no, they're not experienced. I would say they're not anywhere near as experienced as a CQC regulated body.
Okay, I've got a statement to make. Here we go. I think it's because they've got the money to advertise on Google that they're going to get at the top of the list. They're sponsored, they get the results, and I fall into the trap, potentially. I'm not saying that they're all bad or inadequate or whatever. They might be outstanding. But if you've got the money to advertise, you could well end up at the top of the search engine list. Whereas I do know, because I have done this, I've tested it. When I've looked at home care, it does not bring me up with the Care Quality Commission as the first respondent. So I think there's a money challenge here. Marketing sells, obviously, that's what it's there for. Can I just clarify, would you agree, and if you don't, fine, would you agree that if you are unsure about any provider, or you were searching for any provider in, let's say, Bromley or Bristol or Birmingham, you could quite easily go onto the CQC website and do a search and find all of the categories of providers that you might be looking for. Is that a fair reflection?
Yeah, absolutely. Fair reflection. And I suppose the flip side of it, now people are better informed of CQC being ultimately the people who make the judgment, right? The people who allow people to operate and tell you how good their service is. I think now people know that is really, really important to understand. If you did go via an introductory service and you decided to look at a certain provider, the first thing I would be doing is understanding how they are positioned with CQC.
CQC.org.uk. Go search it out. And into the home care space, I do know there's over 16,000, that's a lot, 16,000 registered providers delivering home care across the UK. Now, a lot of these, to be fair to them, are local, providing a professional local service. And as Katie alluded to, some are rated outstanding, some might be good, some are in need of improvement, and frankly, some are inadequate. So there is a risk, isn't there, Katie, that if they've got lots of money, not that they probably will have if they're inadequate, but there are companies that can fall into that trap, that have fallen off the cliff, that still seem to advertise, have got a good presence online, but if you don't go looking at the CQC, you'll get sold a story.
Yeah, absolutely. That like non-negotiable for me. That would be my first sort of the sort of Bible where I would go to. At least then you're informed on what type of service that they're delivering. The other thing that's really important is looking at when they were last time inspected. CQC have had lots of challenges at the minute with, I think, with their own workforce, and the fact that there's been so many providers who've set up in the last few years and also closed down. I think it's really important to make sure that that report is as recent as it possibly could be. So, if you're good or outstanding in the last couple of years, you would like to think in terms of that service delivery, it's continued to be that case. I think the other thing is in terms of when you're navigating, you made the point before around people having different levels of spend to be able to push their services out there. This is a massive challenge, massive. There's some amazing providers out there who wouldn't have, fraction of spend to be able to allocate around that to, enhance your SEO or, push your rankings right to the top, the search engine. And, that for me is why, at least if you're informed from I live in Bromley, like you said, for example, I know there's 10 providers in this area and 5 are good, 1's outstanding and the rest are inadequate. Right. Well, I'm going to look at these few because, and also it's about picking up the phone and speaking to those individual providers as well. And how do they make you feel? How do they make you feel when you pick up the phone? Do you feel like, you've got their undivided attention and everything that you've read in their report is, not everything, but there's some reflections in terms of how they're making you feel, how much they're listening to you about what mum and dad need, when can they help you, and how can they help you? I think that's the sort of next step of once you're informed in terms of, I've got a couple of providers here who are good to outstanding. I'm going to give them a phone call because that level of service, the ability to build trust with somebody and have a level of empathy over the phone would be the reason that I bought from them. First and foremost, then I'd meet them. And we're going into the process of what the consultation would look like then. But I know ultimately that for me is don't go from the person who's at the top of the ranking. Because like you said, a lot of the time they'll have lots of money to spend. Now they might be absolutely amazing. And if they are, wonderful. But there's many providers who won't be as big as that out there providing outstanding quality care to their clients. So I think that's a really, really important point that you made in terms of being able to spend a load of money to push your services out there versus I'm a local provider. I do loads of networking. I do loads of community events. We look after our clients really well. We look after our carer workforce really well, and they're really highly trained. Yeah, I don't put a load of spend around Google. So that's why when I was saying before, in terms of when you're looking, CQC, social media, Google, local community, they're all relevant areas to look to help you make an informed decision.
Outstanding providers mean that they're really, really expensive, as opposed to somebody that's good and they're maybe not quite so expensive. I mean, is there any truth in that thought, or does that not ring true?
I don't agree with that particularly. I think at the end of the day, if you're providing an outstanding service, it's like everybody's got choice, right? And everybody will have a budget. So that budget, your own personal budget will depend on the level of service you're going to get. It's like, if you shop at Aldi, you've got one budget. If you shop at Waitrose, you've got a different budget. I'm not saying outstanding providers out there, there'll be some that are more costly than others, absolutely. But I think it's about understanding why the price point is at that. And I would never, ever, only because I've got the knowledge, but if I rang somebody and they said, right, well, we're, I don't know, £35 an hour, and I rang someone else and they were 25, that would sort of set alarm bells off a little bit for me. I wouldn't be thinking, oh, I'll go with the cheaper one because it's care for my mum or dad, right? This is really important. I'd be wanting to understand why there's a significant difference in cost. Now, if there is a significant difference in cost, I'd be expecting they're remunerating their workforce really, really well, which I'm a massive advocate of. Carers have an incredibly difficult and emotional job. They should be rewarded appropriately. I would expect that they'd have systems in place that could communicate with me so I knew what was going on with mum, that they're not paper-based anymore because they shouldn't be. I'd be expecting to have different levels of service for the more money that I paid. So it's not to say somebody cheaper is worse at all. They may run a different type of organisation. They may train their carers in a different way versus somebody more expensive. I would never make a judgment on going, well, if they're outstanding, they're going to be highly more expensive. If they're outstanding, at the end of the day, they're doing something incredibly better than other providers, and there may be a level of cost that is attached to that, them being better.
And of course, we're talking broadly about the private sector delivery rather than through the local authority, where you don't get that choice. Not quite so readily anyway. You can influence choice, but you don't really get the choice. The provider is the provider. So just to remind people here that we're talking about the private sector decision making. I'd like to flip it a little bit, if I may. All very interesting stuff so far, that's for sure. But I've found a couple of care providers. They're outstanding. I've checked them out on CQC. They've got 5-star ratings. They're amazing. I'm thinking about now giving them a call. What should I be asking these providers? How should I, forget their sales pitch. I don't know. Will they sales pitch if they're an outstanding company? What should I expect as somebody that phones up a care provider and says, hi, my name's Gavin. My mum needs some care and I'm just doing some research. Where does it go next? I'm just jumping into this episode, which I hope you're enjoying, to ask for a favour. It's really important to us to get likes, shares, following and comments about the Chasing Care podcast in order to build the audience. So if you know anybody that's in the care sector or thinking about care for a family member, maybe you could recommend and share. Let's get back to the episode.
For me, I'd just want somebody to listen to me. I'd want somebody to listen to the pain, the challenges, the emotion that I'm going through right now, and really understand that and reaffirm that they understand that and make me feel at ease that this is something they do day in, day out. This isn't something I do day in, day out. I would be expecting them to be able to articulate what it is that I actually need to support my mum or dad and to keep them at home. They are the expert. I would expect them to be guiding me with the information that I'm providing them, of telling them what my current situation is, what I want for mum. And that, active listening is key. If somebody's just literally blurting out, right, we do this, this, and this, and it costs this, this, and that, I wouldn't be interested at all. I want them to be listening and engaged with mum and dad. And I want them to use that type of language. Tell me a little bit about mum. How does mum get about doing the shopping? What do you support her with? It needs to feel personal, right? This is somebody who's making a massive decision. It could still be a challenging conversation with their loved one. Maybe those are the types of questions that, how can I speak to mum about this? How, she's really reluctant to have care at home, but she really needs it. I would expect them to have all the answers to my question.
Do I have the right questions to ask? That's my point.
I would, any good provider will be able to ask you enough questions to understand what it is you're looking for, right? They do it. And this is what's really important. I think it's like we go to the doctor or you go to a consultant, right? You've not got all the answers. You won't know what to ask, but you'll be able to tell them what your symptoms are, right? Then you expect them to be professional and tell you exactly what you need. I would expect that from any provider worth their salt. Right, they're speaking to people all the time on the phone. And the other bit, Gavin, that they've got they can demonstrate empathy. They can demonstrate that they care. And I know this is over the phone, but anybody who, and there's lots of them out there. I mystery shop on a regular basis. I like to understand what, people are listening to at the end of the phone and how people are being received. There's nothing worse than ringing a provider where it sounds like all hell's breaking loose in the background. And it happens. I hear it on a regular basis. Because they're in busy offices, I understand that. But when you're on the phone to a client loved one, a potential client loved one who's distressed, who's really upset, who has not got a clue what to do next, they need your undivided attention. You need to actively listen to them, and you need to be able to show a level of empathy over the phone. And ultimately, my objective would be, if I was a care provider, I'd be listening, I'd be taking down all the information, I'd be understanding what that individual wanted to achieve for their loved one, and I'd be going out, sitting in front of them in their home, making sure that I've understood that correctly, but more so starting to build a relationship with the person who's actually going to receive care.
There's a couple of things I've just picked up in what you've just said, that last paragraph or two. First one is, if I phoned up and I don't get an answer on the phone, or it goes to an answer phone when I'm phoning that provider, is that a good sign? Because they're busy, aren't they?
Yeah. I will be very opinionated about it. So, no. A phone call should never go unanswered in a care provider, because what if that client at the end of the phone is in distress? What if something happened to them? It's a non-negotiable. Absolutely, categorically not. That phone should be answered at all times.
11 o'clock at night, 12 o'clock. Yeah.
That's what on-call is there for.
Okay, I agree. I was just teasing you on that one. But the other thing that I was thinking about was, okay, so I found the outstanding provider on CQC, done a little bit of research, and now I've spoken to them. And what do I just say? Well, when can you start? Is that what I say to these people next? And they send somebody out to me. That's how it works? Yeah.
So I'll tell you what I'd expect. I'd expect a time spent on the phone sharing exactly what I've just said, like, Mum, she's had a fall, she's coming out of hospital, she'll need help with the showering. I also want you to be able to take her out to the shops when it's appropriate, etc., etc. I would then expect somebody to, within 24 to 48 hours, to come and visit me and Mum in the house, understand her environment, and also meet Mum and start to build that level of trust. And also be prepared to deal with objections, right? Like, Mum isn't an easy character. She's got her ways of how she likes to do things. So it's really important for me that somebody is responsive, right? They can come out and they can come and see me. And it's not about the service starting tomorrow, because I think there's a level of that can be really unsafe if not everything's in place. But most definitely to come out and explore, okay, this is what it's going to look like. I'd also want them to be able to talk to me about the carer workforce that could potentially be supporting Mum. Who could they, some providers out there introduce their carers before they even start work, which is amazing. And a significant operational cost to any business to be able to do that, because the workforce are out all over the community. But also where people don't necessarily can do an introduction, they will ensure that they understand all the needs of Mum or Dad, or Mum in my case, and they will match it to all the experiences that their carers have. So, do they like, a carer who may have experience in, I don't know, sewing or something like that, a craft or something like that, because that's what my mum would really like. Somebody who's experienced in dealing with someone with falls, someone who's qualified to deal with someone with dementia. So I'd expect them to be coming, taking down my information, building a relationship with Mum, and also talking to me about the carers within their workforce who they think would be ideally suited to look after Mum. then I would want to know, okay, well, when could we start? Like, what is the process now? So generally people will take lots of information, develop their care plans to make sure, that anybody walking into mum's house is going to be able to deliver high level quality of care in line with what the needs of mum has. And basically that's the sort of initial process. I'd expect them to go away and come back to me with, when can we start? These are the people who you're going to meet. Some people are great at providing, almost like a carer testimonial in terms of, this is your carer, this is what they look like, this is who they are, these are the qualifications, this is who's going to look after mum on Mondays and Tuesdays. And Sarah, another amazing carer, is going to look after mum on Fridays and Saturdays. Like, it's all the little bit of extras that I'm looking to make me feel secure that that person coming in is going to be the right person, and that mum feels incredibly confident and almost has got to know the carer before they've actually got to the front door.
Probably should just add on top of that, there should be a clear care plan that everybody is aware of, so that mum, you, and the care provider understand exactly who's doing what, when, and what the parameters are of that care that they're offering.
Yeah, that's what I was saying in terms of when they're collecting the information, that the care plan develops off the back of that. And then the care plan will evolve over time because mum's needs may change. Risk assessments will be done in the home just to make sure that everything's safe, in terms of if she's already there or if she's returning from hospital, whatever the case may be. Also, if there's medication involved, again, this is why it's so important from a regulated point of view that you're working with a good provider who have all the necessary tools, information gathering to, like, a lot of people, this used to all be done on paper, right? Not anymore. There are digital solutions, amazing digital solutions out there that not only provide instant information for not just the provider, now the family. Like, I want to know when you visited mum. I want to know that you was on time. I want to know you've done everything you said you were going to do. And on the opposite side of that, I also want to know that I can make a change if something isn't right. If Sarah's not really matching with mum, I want to be able to say, look, it's just not working. Can we try something else? And I want to feel that that's an option. And again, throughout the consultation, these are things that should be discussed.
End of the day, the care provider is there to enhance that individual's life. That's the way that I've always considered it.
Yeah, absolutely. And keep them at home where they want to be.
Yeah, there's another subject, isn't it? Keep them at home where they want to be. Now, we haven't really touched on, and time ticks so quickly on these podcasts, so you're going to have to come back on another day, Katie, to cover some stuff. But the second part of the question that we really should answer is, can I be better prepared as an individual for my care or mum or dad's care in the future? What should I have been thinking? When should I start thinking about it? Over to you.
Yeah, I'm going to give a little bit of a view on this, and then I'm going to leave it with a question for us to answer maybe for next time to delve into. I've got a very strong opinion on this, shock horror. We, as society, my take on the world is this: we plan everything or a lot of things in life, from having babies, getting married, going to university, buying our first home, pensions,
Getting divorced.
Divorce, yeah, maybe.
Not you. No, I was talking about me, by the way. Just flag up your husband. Sorry, it wasn't intended.
And then it all stopped at 65. And it's crazy. It's crazy. And I don't just mean because, yes, we're all living longer. But why we're so focused on what a wonderful life we want before retirement, but what about after? Like, how can we age well? How can we prevent a lot of the ailments and conditions that people come to you in a crisis? How can we prevent that and think about it much earlier on in our aging journey? there's so much to unpack here, Gavin. So I would love to come back and talk about it. But my question to anybody listening is, at any stage of your life, and thinking about where you are now, and even maybe about how old your parents are. For me, for example, like my mum's 70. She doesn't need hands-on care right now. However, we have different things in terms of technology that keep her well, that keep her moving, that we know that she's okay when we're not there. There's things like that that I think should be considered in terms of your aging journey, and that's all around prevention. I think the other aspect of thinking about care for the future is people think, well, the state will pay for it. I've paid my taxes. Not going to happen. So how can we all be better placed? And I know it's a massive challenge with the cost of living at this moment in time, but is there something out there in terms of insuring ourselves for later life, like we do with lots of other things, to ensure that I've got a pot of money so I have a choice of who is going to help me stay at home as I age well?
Yes, it's something we've touched upon in previous podcasts about somebody has to pay. I think had Edwin Lister raised that particular question, and that seems to be a tagline that she's happy to carry forward, and she's absolutely right. Somebody has to pay. And as we do age and live longer, there's more elderly people. There is not money in the pot. We keep seeing this in the government. They happily put the money in the NHS, which is, in my opinion, the wrong place to put it. They should put it in social care to keep people fit and healthier, living longer in their own home with less hospital visits. And that's another conversation, as you quite rightly said. There doesn't seem to be any real financial planning for people moving forward. At the age, I've talked about this the other day with somebody talking about equity release in properties, because nobody's planning for the future, but they want to stay in their own home. So how do you release that money? Thankfully, equity release is out there, not right for absolutely everybody. And we have to accept also that living at home isn't right for everybody. Let's be absolutely fair. Even though people might want to remain in their own home, and we know the percentages are over 80% do. So yeah, somebody's got to pay for it, and never going to be early enough, is it, to start thinking about it? And all these people that think mum and dad's got a big house and I'm going to make a load of money when they pass, probably not going to be the case, because they're going to start spending that money to look after themselves as they get older. And I had a phone call literally just the other day into our business that recognised that the level of care that their mum is getting isn't enough. The individual's 96 years of age. She's getting 3 days a week of care, and the daughter doesn't want to put her into a care home because that's going to kill her. So she's got to look at options. It's a little bit late, mind you, to think about it, but she recognised that I've got no choice. So she's been discussing live-in care as a step solution. So you're quite right. Back in that conversation, you mentioned different levels of care as you grow older.
Absolutely. And it's one, to remain independent, but to let's move away from this crisis situation. Let's better prepare ourselves. And also, getting older can be great. It's like there's this stigma like, oh, well, old age. And it's like, well, do you know what? Let's prepare for that journey, and let's make sure it's as enjoyable as your other sort of 60, 70 years at the other end of the spectrum. And, and when things get a little bit more difficult, fine, but let's push that crisis out a lot further than it needs to be.
And it's not our responsibility today, but I do get on a bit of a hobby horse. It's down, a lot of this is down to our lifestyles for sure. And you can change how you feel, your well-being, by taking a different route, maybe not drinking alcohol, ultra-processed foods, keeping fit. I know all of these things are probably on both our agendas moving forward in life, and it will substantially improve your life, and you will remain more independent than you think that you might be. So everything is there to live for, as you quite rightly said. The challenge for everybody, however, is there is although it's available because there's lots of providers, knowing how to go about finding quality care, which is person-centric and all of these great things, is going to be extremely difficult moving forward unless you've got the tools. And the one thing that I sort of hear is that there isn't anybody that can send me a form that says, when you need care, here's a list of questions that you need to be asking. Or here's the plan that you've got to start implementing at the age of 25 to make sure that you've got care ready when you're at the age of 60. And let's remember as well, everybody that's listening, you don't know what's around the corner. And whilst Katie and I have been talking about elderly care, pretty much, that's what we've been talking about, mum and dad, you may need care in your 40s. You just don't know what is around the corner. Any final thoughts, Katie, on how to go about finding personal care in time of need?
No, probably just to summarise, really. I think, as I said, CQC is a great place as a starting point to just give you, to support you to know that you're making an informed decision with somebody who's providing good to outstanding quality care. That would be my first port of call, for sure.
And I think, listeners, we will be actually running another little session with Katie, because whilst I hear what you're saying, Katie, you eloquently outlined it, there was too much. There's too much about social media, about local community knowledge that you can gain, and speaking to social workers. It's just too much for me. I need more detail. So first of all, I'd like to say, Katie Fury, thank you so much for your time today. It's been amazing. And if anybody wanted to get hold of you, either to pick your brains about care, or as a care provider that's listened in and gone, oh yes, damn, we're not thinking about that, how do they find you? How do they reach out to Katie Fury?
Thank you for that. Yeah, absolutely. So I have my own business, and twofold. Yeah, absolutely. I would love if anybody at all wants to speak to me because they're struggling to make a decision about a loved one. I would love to support that. My email is Katie, Katie, at katiefury, FUREY.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn as well, as another platform to reach me. But I help businesses drive sustainable operations and ultimately attract the individual clients that they want to support, and a little bit into what we spoke about before. From a provider point of view, it's about them getting out there and getting, helping consumers understand a little bit more about care, and also why they should be looked after by that individual business rather than anybody else's. So I support businesses all across the UK in terms of private pay providers. But I would, if anybody at all, if there's a son or daughter out there listening and you're really struggling with mum or dad, go and find me, email me, find me on LinkedIn, drop me a message. I will be more than happy to have a conversation with you to help you navigate the system.
Katie, that's absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. There's something about our industry sometimes, I genuinely feel that, where we do care.
Yeah.
And we are there for people that don't know where to go. So that's amazing. It's so sweet of you. Thank you so much for that. And yes, next time around, I think we'll be talking about community. We'll be talking about how providers should be out in the community. And if you're looking for care, how the community could be a place for you to go to find that care for your loved one, a trusted care provider for your loved one. Katie Fury, thank you for spending time with me on Chasing Care.
Thanks for having me.